Hello and welcome back to Read This Next with Ruth and Nicole. This week we are once again doing a revisit to an old topic because there's always new books coming out. So today we're going to be focusing on witches. There is one book in this that is a male witch, but for the most part it will be featuring female, or I think there might be a non-binary witch as well, but either way, it's going to be a lot of witches, a lot of covens, a lot of amazing authors, and a lot of representation, which is really great because I think a lot of times traditionally witches kind of get stereotyped into like the Salem lot, where it's mostly like the US. So we got a bit more diversity this time, and yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I think
And then, of course,
I'm
you've got
starting.
like your younger boarding school witches genre,
Yeah,
right? So this is
always.
something completely different and more fun. Well, we
Yeah.
think.
Some of them will fall into the classics, I'm sure, but yeah, I'm actually really excited about this list. Okay. We're going to start with Over My Dead Body by Sweeney Boo, which is a fabulous name. Okay. One day, everything was exactly as it was supposed to be, and the next, the closest thing Abby ever had to a sister, Noreen, was just gone. Distracted by the annual preparations for the Samhain festival, Abby's classmates are quick to put Noreen's disappearance aside, which is odd, in my opinion. The coven will find her, Abby's friend says. They have it under control, but Abby can't let it go. Soon, a search for answers leads her down a rabbit hole that uncovers more secrets than Abby can handle. As mounting evidence steers her towards the off-limits woods that surround the academy, she begins to see that Noreen's disappearance mysteriously has a lot in common with another girl who went missing all those years ago. And it also says, for if you're a fan of the chilling adventures of Sabrina, that this might be a good one for you. So this is a YA one. And yeah, it sounds more like
Hmm.
the classic teenage witch one.
Well, and I think the whole idea too is like, I guess they're distracted by the preparations for Samhain because that's like the big festival that would matter.
I'm glad you know how to pronounce it because I obviously pronounced it incorrectly.
I'm here for the weird Gaelic words,
Yay.
but I'm not always perfect and like I'll get lost with the Welsh ones. So if we have a Welsh witch, I might be in trouble.
That's fair. It does say that that day is when the veil between the world of the dead and the living is at its thinnest. So I wonder if this takes place in.
Oh, like where the setting is for the book, like whether it's in like Ireland or if it's in North America.
Yeah, there's no indication in the description.
No,
Oh,
well,
well,
maybe we can look it up, find out, and it could be something to add to the show notes.
there you go. All right.
We are intrigued in knowing where this is happening.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious. Yeah, anyways, your turn.
Okay, so the next one is Venko, which when you look at the spelling on the title, it's interesting because the V is capitalized and the C is, and if you flip the co to the end, you've got Coven.
Mhm.
Really great cover art where it actually says Venko and Coven. It's by Cherie DeMaline, like amazing Canadian author, so that's pretty exciting. And I've read the beginning of it. I got an advanced reader's copy and then just, I confess, got a little bit busy. What I've read so far, I've really, really enjoyed. So I'm
Nice.
excited to share this with everybody else. Lucky St. James, a Métis millennial living with her cantankerous but loving grandmother Stella, is barely hanging on when she discovers she will be evicted from their tiny Toronto apartment. Then one night, something strange and irresistible calls out to Lucky. Burrowing through a wall, she finds a silver spoon etched with a crooked-nosed witch and the word Salem humming with otherworldly energy. Hundreds of miles away in Salem, Myrna Good has been looking for Lucky. Myrna works for Venko, a front company fueled by vast resources of dark money. Lucky is familiar with the magic of her indigenous ancestors, but she has no idea that the spoon links her to Venko's network of witches throughout North America. Generations of witches have been waiting for centuries for the 7 spoons to come together, igniting a new era and restoring women to their rightful power. But as reckoning approaches, a very powerful adversary is stalking their every move. He's Jay Christos, a roguish and deadly witch hunter as old as witchcraft itself. To
Mm.
find the last spoon, Lucky and Stella embark on a rollicking and dangerous road trip to the darkly magical city of New Orleans, where the final showdown will determine whether Venco will usher in a new beginning or remain underground forever. And I have to say, like, the beginning of this book was super cool because it didn't actually start with Lucky. It
Mm.
starts with a meeting of some of the most powerful witches,
Cool.
but it has a very like interesting corporate vibe going too, which I think
Yeah.
comes out in the whole Venco piece.
Yeah. Then company. I
Mhm.
love that. Yeah, and this is there's a couple in this list that are only available on Cloud Library, like our next one, but this one is in our Indigenous Knowledge Center if you're looking for it.
Yeah.
If
And
you
it
want.
might be not where you think to look for it because it is like such a like it's a witch story, but we really like to make sure that our Indigenous authors are easily found all together.
Mm,
So check out the
mm,
IKC.
yeah. Our next one is How to Succeed in Witchcraft by Ashlyn Brophy. This is a YA one with a cool cover in my mind. And this is one that you can only get on Cloud Library. So if you have a library card, you can also use that there. So, okay, here we go. Magically brilliant, academically perfect, chronically overcommitted. Life of most teenagers. Shay Johnson has all the makings of a successful witch. Now that she's a junior at TK Anderson Magical Magnet School, she's one step closer. I wonder if that spells anything. TKAMMS. No. She's
Hams.
to chems. She's one step closer to winning the full ride Brockton Scholarship, her ticket to the university of her dreams. Her main competition, Anna freaking Alvarez. The key to victory, impressing Mr. B, drama teacher and head of the scholarship committee. When Mr. B persuades Shay to star in this year's aggressively inclusive, racially diverse musical at their not quite diverse school, she agrees, warily, even though she'll have to put up with Anna playing the other lead. But with rehearsals underway, Shay realizes that Anna is not the despicable witch she thought. Perhaps she could even be a friend or more. And Shay could use someone in her corner when she finds herself on the receiving end of Mr. B's unpleasant and unwanted attention. When Shay learns that she's not the first witch to experience his inappropriate behavior, she must decide if she'll come forward. But how can she speak out when the scholarship and her future are on the line? An unforgettable debut, How to Succeed in Witchcraft conjures up searing social commentary, delightfully awkward high school theater, and magical proclamations of love.
It's
Very
interesting that it
sweet.
like at first it seems like, the enemies to love cutesy, and then you add in the creepy teacher. It's
Yeah.
almost it feels like that part is like, let's add in some of those like teen angst issues.
Yeah. It's and it's also an LGBTQ romance. So it's got a lot of like real teenage issues going on in this
Hmm.
one. And just in a magic school. It
But
just
also trying to
happens to
wrap it
be
up with
there.
like a little bit of fun and lightness that sometimes we find hard to find in like regular daily life.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious what musical they're doing that is aggressively inclusive, racially diverse.
Good question.
Yeah, I'm very
Read it to find
curious.
out.
Yeah, let me know. This next one is also only available on iCloud. Not
Oh, okay.
iCloud, Cloud Library.
You know what? It's a Thursday that feels like a Friday. Hey, as we're
True.
recording.
True.
So the next one up is Improbable Magic for Cynical Witches by Kate Skelsa. And I love the cover for this one. I think this is
It's
like,
sweet.
it's sweet. It looks a little bit magical. It's kind of in the woods, and we often end up talking about the covers. We haven't as much this episode, but this is, I think, the first one that for me personally, I really dig it.
Yeah.
So here we go. 17-year-old Eleanor is the least likely person in Salem. So we are spending a fair bit of time in Salem to believe in witchcraft or think that her life could be transformed by mysterious forces. Ostracized by her classmates after losing her best friend and first love, Chloe, Eleanor has spent the past year in a haze, vowing to stay away from anything resembling romance. So now it's pulling my heartstrings, and we're not even that far in. But when a handwritten guide to tarot arrives in the mail at the witchy souvenir store where Eleanor works, it seems to bring with it the message that magic is about to enter her life. Cynical Eleanor is quick to dismiss this promise until real-life witch Pix shows up with an unusual invitation. Inspired by the magic and mystery of the tarot, Eleanor decides to open herself up to making friends with Pix and her coven of witches, and even to the possibility of a new romance. But Eleanor's complicated history in Salem continues to haunt her, and she is desperate to keep Pix from finding out the truth. Eleanor will have to reckon with the old ghosts that threaten to destroy everything, even her chance at new love. Improbable Magic for Cynical Witches is an atmospheric and romantic coming of age about learning to make peace with the past in order to accept the beauty of the present.
It sounds really sweet.
It
Again, a nice
does.
just coming of age, but it's also fantasy based and it's LGBTQ and it's very sweet and it just sounds like a very nice read.
Yeah, I mean, she obviously has some heavy stuff that she's carrying, but
Hmm.
I feel like this is one that they might deal with that heavy stuff with a bit of a lighter hand and not pulling us too deeply into it, even though, like I said, my heartstrings have already been pulled.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It looks very sweet. This next one is also a Cloud Library one, and this is not a YA one. This is an adult one. Adult, whatever. Payback's a Witch. There was a trend when I was trying to find new titles of titles that use some sort of witch pun in them, and this is one of them.
Very cutesy in that language
Yeah.
use.
There was
But I
another one
mean,
called Go Hex Yourself, which I didn't include in this list, but
mm.
in case you're
But I
looking
mean,
for
this one
another.
also, like when you're looking, and I know you're going to get into it, but it does say it's like a rom-com. So that is sort of where those punny titles belong, right?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, so this is the first one in a series by Lana Harper. Emmy Harlow is a witch, but not a very powerful one, in part because she hasn't been home to the magical town of Thistlegrove in years. Her self-imposed exile has a lot to do with a complicated family history and a desire to forge her own way in the world. And only the very tiniest bit to do with Gareth Blackmore, heir to the most powerful magical family in town and casual breaker of hearts and destroyer of dreams. But when a spellcasting tournament that her family serves as arbiters for, it turns out the pull of tradition, or the truly impressive parental guilt trip that comes along with it, is strong enough to bring Emmy back. She's determined to do her familial duty, spend some quality time with her best friend Lyndon Thorne, and get back to her real life in Chicago. On her first night home, not Amy, runs into Talia Amarov, an all-around badass adept in the darker magical arts, who is fresh off a bad breakup with Gareth Blackmore. Talia had let herself be charmed only to discover that Gareth was also seeing Lyndon, unbeknownst to either of them. Shame. And now she and Lyndon want revenge. Only one question stands. Is Emmy in? But most concerning of all, why can't she stop thinking about the terrifyingly competent, devastatingly gorgeous, wickedly charming Talia Armarov? Avramov, not Armamov. Either way, sounds cute, sounds very John Tucker Must Die. And yeah, tomfoolery abounds.
Well, I'm loving the names in this, right? Like it's in Thistle Grove, and we've got someone
Yeah.
whose name is Lyndon Thorne. So like a tree and a thorn for the name.
Yeah.
Blackmore, like it's, but then that makes Talia even more exotic sounding.
Mm-hmm.
You
They're
know,
all
we
very like lyrical, and then there's
mhm.
Talia Avramov. I love it. It sounds
I,
really, really cute.
and I love that, you know what, I love the colors in the cover. Like they seem very appropriate for the word. It just, or for the word. Ah, don't mind me. Like for this rom-com and the feel of it, like it fits nicely.
Yeah, it does. Very, very cute.
All right, so next up we have The Year of Witching by Alexis Henderson. It looks like it's the start of a series. It says Bethel #1 here for us. In the lands of Bethel, where the prophet's word is law, Emmanuel Moore's very existence is blasphemy. Her mother's union with an outsider of a different race cast her once proud family into disgrace. So Emmanuel does her best to worship the Father, follow holy protocol, and lead a life of submission, devotion, and absolute conformity like all the other women in the settlement. This is starting off pretty depressing.
Yeah.
But a mishap lures her into the forbidden dark woods surrounding Bethel, where the first prophet once chased and killed 4 powerful witches. Their spirits are still lurking there, and they bestow a gift on Emmanuel, the journal of her dead mother, who Emmanuel is shocked to learn once sought sanctuary in the woods, much as she now seems to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinated by the secrets in the diary, Emmanuel finds herself struggling to understand how her mother could have consorted with the witches. But when she begins to learn grim truths about the church and its history, she realizes the true threat to Bethel is its own darkness. And she starts to understand that if Bethel is to change, it must begin with her. This feels like a very heavy sort of like the beginning of a quest.
Mm-hmm. It does. And I think that's
Whether the
exactly
quest
why it's
is
a series.
yeah. And I mean, we tend to think of quests in terms of, the Lord of the Rings, like the big quest, but there's also these quests of how do we improve our community
Mm-hmm.
and find our way
Well,
forward.
there's and I'm sure you've heard of it, but there's the hero's journey cycle, which is
Yeah.
like the idea isn't that they have to necessarily
Go
go
somewhere.
anywhere. They can just go into a dark place, or the unknown is the journey itself. So even if it's internal, it can be some sort of
Still
journey.
fits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this one specifically says it's a feminist fantasy debut. So it seems like it's a bit more of a serious one compared to what was the other one that I'm thinking of that we just talked about? Was it Venko? No, How to Succeed in Witchcraft, where they sound like opposite ends of kind of the same spectrum, where they're looking at the feminist, they're looking at how their magical society is not working with the current system that they're living in.
Yeah.
But one seems a little bit more, this one seems more serious.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, the other one is
And I
much
mean, and
more.
also this is an adult
Mhm.
fiction versus
Yeah.
a young adult fiction. So that's obviously going to affect the themes and how things are handled.
Yeah, even the cover, dark.
Oh yeah. It's a very serious cover. It actually leans more towards almost a literary fiction cover versus a
Mm.
popular fiction. And oh my goodness, I was reading such interesting things about covers yesterday.
Oh
And
yeah,
the covers of young adult fiction and also just themes in young adult fiction recently. I know
cool.
that's not for now, but super,
Tell me
super
about it
interesting shit.
later for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, this next one, speaking of covers, I'm actually gonna move it so you can probably see it a bit better.
It's so beautiful.
Right? How gorgeous is that?
It's
Okay,
very lush.
yeah, I really like it. For our listeners, it is a crow with the words wayward in front of it, and then there is a bunch of picture the word cottage core over a black over a green backdrop, and that's the vision. So this is Wayward by Amelia Hart. No, yeah, Amelia
Mhm.
Hart. I am a wayward and wild inside. 2019, under the cover of darkness, Kate flees London for a ramshackle wayward cottage, inherited from a great aunt she barely remembers. With its tumbling ivy and overgrown garden, the cottage is worlds away from the abusive partner who tormented Kate, but she begins to suspect that her great aunt had a secret, one that lurks in the bones of the cottage, hidden ever since the witch hunts of the 17th century. 1619, Alpha is awaiting trial for the murder of a local farmer who was stampeded to death by his herd. As a girl, Alpha's mother taught her their magic, a kind not rooted in spellcasting, but in a deep knowledge of the natural world. But unusual women have, I'm stuttering all over this paragraph, but
Do you want me to pick it up for you or are you good?
no, I got it, thanks.
Okay.
But unusual women have always been deemed dangerous, and as the evidence for witchcraft is set out against Alpha, she knows it will take all of her power to maintain her freedom. 1942, so I jump back ahead. As World War II rages, Violet is trapped in her family's grand crumbling estate. Straitjacketed by social convention, she longs for the robust education her brother receives and for her mother, long deceased, who was rumored to have gone mad before her death. The only traces Violet has of her are a locket bearing the initial W and the word wayward scratched into the baseboard of her room. Weaving together the stories of 3 extraordinary women across 5 centuries, Amelia Hart's Wayward is a enthralling novel of female resilience and the transformative power of the natural world. It's yeah, this is the kind of witch that isn't magic. Like the other ones have very much seemed like they were spell casting, some sort of innate magical ability, whereas this one seems much more akin with things like Wiccans do now.
And the whole idea of like the forest witch
Oh,
kind of thing.
I don't know anything about that.
Oh, forest
Yeah.
witches. And when you think about it, the cover too, it has that like when we started talking about the 1619 Alpha, the cover also makes me think of Renaissance paintings and the still lifes
Mm.
they would do. So it ties together really, really beautifully.
Yeah, it sounds really it's an I know at the top we said we were going to see a bunch of different types of witches, and I think this is one of the other ones were all very,
Mhm.
like I said, magic. And this
Yeah.
is the relationship with the natural world as a form of magic and how that works, which is very interesting and fresh. I like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And next we have In the House in the Dark of the Woods by Laird Hunt. And I'm going to tell you, this cover creeps me out.
Yeah.
Like not as much as when we were doing
That woman with
the
no,
teeth one.
yeah.
Yeah, that one creeped me right. This one isn't quite so, but all these hands reaching over a wolf's head, it looks like it's a little intense.
Hmm.
But I mean, it wants to be, so that's great. I mean, you want the cover, well, you want the cover art to give an idea of what you're getting yourself into,
Oh,
right?
for
I know we
sure.
don't judge books by covers, but on the
Oh, we
like,
do. I do.
you sort of can't help but do it. And at the end of the day, a good cover translates into an image where the book is going to lead you.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
once upon a time, there was and there wasn't a woman who went into the woods, or sorry, went to the woods. In this ingenious horror story set in colonial New England, a woman goes missing or not missing. Perhaps she has fled, abandoned her family, or perhaps she's been kidnapped and set loose to wander in the dense woods of the north. Alone and possibly lost, she meets another woman in the forest. Then everything changes. On a journey that will take her through a wolf-haunted wood, down a deep well, and onto a living ship made of human bones, our heroine is forced to confront her past and may find that the evil she flees has been inside her all along. Eerie and disturbing, In the House in the Dark of the Woods is a novel of psychological horror and suspense told in Laird Hunt's acclaimed lyrical prose style. It is the story of a bewitching, a betrayal, a master huntress, and her quarry. It is a story of anger, of repression, of revenge, and redemption. It is a story of a haunting, one that forms the bedrock of American mythology, told in a vivid voice you will never forget. I think this one would keep me up at night.
Really? Because this doesn't seem
Psychological horror, that gets me.
that's fair. It's interesting because when I read this, I don't see how it's a psychological horror based on the description. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any idea what the horror is gonna be. Like clearly they're saying it's something internal with her, but and also this also implies when I made this list, it implied there was witches in it, but it doesn't necessarily spell that out in the description. So it's
No, but
curious.
there's a living ship made of human bones.
Oh yeah, there's
And
definitely weird stuff.
who is the master huntress? Is it the woman who goes missing or the woman she meets? Like the woman
There's
she
a
meets
lot
could
going
be a
on.
witch. There's yeah. Like it's one of those kind of amazing descriptions because it tells you a lot, but also not. Like
Hmm.
it really ties in with that first line that we've got of once upon a time there was and there wasn't a woman who went to the woods.
Hmm.
We have a lot of information and yet we don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm this one too. I probably would not want to read it because it says it's scary, which is not I'm not a fan of, but it makes me want to read it.
Yeah, it makes you
Yeah.
want to read it and not want to read it at the same time. There's a super spooky book for you one day. No,
Oh
but you will
no.
never read it. You'll never read it. I'll tell you about it after.
Sounds
I'm just
good.
gonna leave things hanging here. Like, let me tell you stories later.
We'll chat later. Let's go to the last one. So we kind of did these in order of like like progressively were getting darker. And this last one is back to YA to end on a light note. This is a older book called Revenge of the Witch. It is the first book in the Last Apprentice series by Joseph Delaney. Short description, but this book has been around for a very long time, and at one point it was very popular, so give it a shot. Bring it back. And this is the one book that we include that is a male witch. Potentially, maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Either way, Thomas Ward is the seventh son of a seventh son, classic, and has been apprenticed to the local spook. The job is hard, the spook is distant, and many apprentices have failed before Thomas. Somehow Thomas must learn to exorcise ghosts, contain witches, and bind boggarts. So he's obviously not a witch, but there are witches. Well, I don't know.
But what is the local spook? We need details.
Yeah.
You know what? I remember buying these books for
Mhm.
years, but I've never actually read one.
I wonder, I feel like he's probably a wizard, and either way. But when he is tricked into freeing Mother Malkin, the most evil witch in the county, the horror begins. Dot, dot, dot. So it's a short description, but you know exactly what you're getting into. A kid who is clearly the seventh son of the seventh son is also supposed to be like a magical significance. And then he's training to, it's very much like a YA version of The Witcher, where it's this person taking down a whole bunch of bad guys and like evil creatures. So it sounds simple, and like each book will be building on it. I like it. Yeah. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I think that was we covered a lot of different books.
Yeah, a lot of
We've
variety.
got some good variety.
Yeah. Really pumped about this list actually. I feel like it's got a little bit of something for everybody. But yeah.
Well, because it goes from the more serious, the more dark to, you know what? Like, I think witches are kind of interesting and kind of fun, but like, don't scare me too much.
Yeah.
Give me my rom-com. Give me
Line.
something light and entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah.
Know where your boundaries are and keep them healthy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that being said, if you missed any titles or authors, as always, you can check our show notes, which are available at tbplofftheshelf.com. Follow us on socials at tbaypl across the board. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And we'll see you all again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.